Hello and welcome to part 2 of the Midtable and Up podcast. If you missed part 1, it's currently available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify and YouTube. You can find it through our Instagram, Twitter and Facebook below. We hope you enjoy part 2 of the podcast. Alright then, so moving on to your number 7 then, Simon.
So my number 7, I'm just going to say it's Brad Friedel.
Okay, okay. I like Brad Friedel. State your case, please, my friend.
So Brad Friedel, now my memories of Brad Friedel were of his later end of his career more than the start. I don't really remember him at Liverpool, for example, in the 90s, which I know he didn't play that often for Liverpool when they signed him.
I remember him at Blackburn.
Blackburn is when I remember him most.
He was the first goalkeeper I ever remember scoring in the Premier League, which is wild.
That's a good reason to have him as any, I think. No, and I just remember him being just the most reliable, solid goalkeeper you could ever hope to have between the sticks. Obviously broke the record for most consecutive appearances in the Premier League. I think he still holds that record with like 400-something games. Like, it was a ridiculous amount of games he played in a row. Like, never missed it through injury or never seemed to lose form. And I think the thing for me is I do always think, why did he never make it at top? I know he went to Tottenham at the back end of his career, but it was more a second choice there, wasn't he? But really?
Well, you know what? No, he wasn't. Not to begin with. Funny enough, when by the time he went to Spurs, he was about 40. I
was going to say, he was back end of his career.
Yeah, no, he was about 40 by the time he went to Spurs, and I remember him going there. And I think he might have started off as second choice, but came on and basically stayed there. And then it took them to buy Hugo Lloris before he was eventually made surplus. So, you know, I'm not being funny to be dislodged by Hugo Lloris. That's really not, especially when you're 40 years old. That's, I think that's a huge compliment, really.
He's also the oldest player to ever make an appearance in the Premier League.
How old was he?
Early 40s.
Early 40s.
Yeah.
But again, and that's testament to the player, because he joined, I think, in like 97. So he was already kind of 27 when he kind of came to the Premier League. And you look at him, he just had a fantastic career by the end. And you talked about your players, they've won titles, they've done this, that and the other, they've got golden gloves behind them. Brad Friedel, forget that. Brad Friedel never had that kind of defence in front of him that he was ever going to be able to do that. And I just went into a game with Brad Friedel in goal. You're like, we are going to have to score past him. He's going to give us nothing. Yeah. I think that's
reliability. Yeah, 100%.
Like, you never went into a game thinking, right, like when you have Kepa against you, when you have, say, like Aurelio Gomez, who I think was at Spurs when Friedel joined.
Yeah, I think you're right there.
There's goalkeepers that you know, like, if you get it in and around them, they might just give you a goal out of nothing. Friedel never did that. Yeah. He just was solid. Again, probably unspectacular in that he just did his business and got on with it. Like, no fuss.
No, I agree. I really like Brad Friedel. And as I said, outside of Lloris and Pepe Reina, as I said, I did take your point in terms of, say, goalkeepers that had a really good Premier League career that didn't quite win it. And as I said, it was between him and Shay Given for me. They were knocking on the door. I really liked Brad Friedel. I thought he was a very, very good, very consistent goalkeeper that had a good number of years in the Premier League and that would do a job at any club, really. Maybe not quite good enough to propel a team to a title, maybe just a slight level below that, but a very reliable, consistent shot stopper. And as you said, his record of consecutive appearances is unreal, really.
Yeah, and
I don't think that will ever be beaten personally.
I reckon he was just a manager's dream as well. Like, you get the sense that he would just turn up, train properly, do everything by the book, and turn up on a match day fit and raring to go, and that was it. No fuss, no frills, just very professional. I think that's the word I'd use to describe Friedel. If I had to pick one word, just a professional goalkeeper, got the job done. And as I say, I think he was the first goalkeeper that I really looked at. Was like, he's good, isn't he? Like, I don't know. I really liked him. I couldn't tell you why I really liked him.
No, I agree. I think I kind of felt exactly the same as with Brad Friedel. So, as I said, maybe it goes back to him scoring that goal.
Potentially, yeah.
And me having never seen a goalkeeper score before, but yeah.
So anyway, he's my number 7.
Moving into the Europa League spots then. Matt, who is your number 6?
So my number 6 was David De Gea.
Mine too.
Both at number 6?
Yeah, both at number 6.
Okay, so he's my number 4.
Number 4. So just a few words on David De Gea and I think fantastic career he had. He was he's been an instrumental part of the Manchester United outfit for a while. Came through when he was young, and I think there's been some criticism of him in the kind of past 2 seasons.
Since the 2018 World Cup, basically. It's kind of where that, I think, really took another level.
Yeah, you are right. But the funny thing with De Gea is, because you know what, as you said, there has been some criticism of him in the last 2 years. And yeah, you would argue that he hasn't probably been the same in those last, 2 going on 3 years now as he was prior to that point. But you know what, though? He's still at United. He's still doing a very good job for them. He's still a good goalkeeper, even though he's not hitting those heights. Whereas we talked in length about Hart earlier. Hart completely plateaued. But David De Gea is still a very good goalkeeper.
An excellent goalkeeper. I think probably the only disappointment, some would argue, is the lack of silverware.
The one title.
Yeah, the one title. But in all honesty,
they've won other things, haven't they? They've won a couple of FA Cups, a Europa League.
They've won a Europa League, a League Cup, an FA Cup. Under like Mourinho and Van Gaal and stuff. Yeah. But the thing that really, for me, kind of exemplifies why David De Gea has been a phenomenal goalkeeper for Manchester United over the best part of 10 years or so now, is that since Ferguson has left, right, he has won their Player of the Year 4 times. So Ferguson would have been retired 8 years at the end of this season. On half of those occasions, at least half, if he doesn't win, he won't win it this year. Fernandes will win it this year. But on half of those occasions, he has been United's Player of the Year. Yeah. And that is telling of not only how good he is, but also how poor that United team have been since he's left. And that attributes as to why he doesn't have more silverware. Because, again, you look at United players of old, he would have won those titles that Schmeichel and Van der Sar won, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I also saw that he was the first United player to win 3 consecutive United Player of the Years in a row.
That he was.
Which, again, if you think of the legends of United, George Best, Wayne Rooney, Cristiano Ronaldo, none of those have done it. And you talk about when it's always a bad sign when your goalkeeper wins Player of the Year.
To a certain extent.
Well, no, there's that famous Mourinho quote, like, something has gone very wrong for your goalkeeper to win Player of the Year. I think that's slightly too far. I see the point of, if you're playing that well, you kind of forget the goalkeeper is even there.
Yeah.
But sometimes the goalkeeper is that good. And I think De Gea, for those, at least 2 or 3 of those years, was that good. Like, some of the saves he would make were just unbelievable.
I do agree, but then I, as you said, you also kind of counter that point with, I think there's a reason why Peter Schmeichel and Van der Sar never won United's Player of the Year when they were playing
and
there.
That's the counter-argument to that.
It works both ways, doesn't it, really?
But he's also made, I think it's 4 PFA Teams of the Year as the goalkeeper as well, which again, that's incredible consistency. It's incredible longevity at this point. I mean, when did he sign? 2011, I think it was. And I know there was a lot of criticism when he first joined of he's not commanding enough of his area. I mean, we talked about Lloris a minute ago, having that ability to command his box. There was a lot of people saying he's too lightweight, he doesn't come for crosses. And people were very seriously talking about him not making it in England because he couldn't deal with the physicality. But he took that criticism and made himself a much better goalkeeper because of it, which again shows the mentality of the man, which I think is just as impressive as his goalkeeping ability.
I completely agree with that, in all honesty. And the thing is, because it was only really as well that first season or so, I want to say, I'm pretty sure they won the league in his second year, if not his first year. But it was his first year that questions were asked about his ability to catch from across and that kind of thing. But from a shot stopping perspective, he always looked very good.
Yeah, no, and I think that was what saved him.
I kind of feel like David De Gea is kind of the reason why not Chelsea probably persisted with Kepa for as long as they did.
Yeah.
Because they thought, well, De Gea started a bit rocky, but he eventually came good. But it's just, it's just Kepa doesn't look like he's going to get anywhere near the level that De Gea was at his peak.
No, not even close.
Yeah, not even close. So, no, David De Gea, I think, valid shout at a Europa League spot. As I said, he made my Champions League spot at number 4. So moving into what would have been my number 6, I had Hugo Lloris. So moving into our final Europa League spot, number 5. Who have you got, Matt?
I have got David Seaman.
He's my number 4.
Snap.
My number 4.
Snap. David Seaman's also my number 5. Snap.
Well, I introduced the Lewis one, so George, go and tell me why he's in your list.
Right, so obviously David Seaman, he's probably one of the first goalkeepers I can really remember as a kid that was just a very, very good goalkeeper, because at the time they were obviously competing with Man United for titles, at least when we were quite young.
Yeah.
And I remember just David Seaman being streaks ahead of Fabian Barthez in that sense. And he's also the first English goalkeeper, or at least England's number 1 that I can remember.
Yeah.
And played for Arsenal for 13 years, signed in 1990, left in 2003, won 3 league titles in that time, one of them being a First Division title in 91. But just unbelievably consistent, a great character as well. And you really feel like he was a kind of player, especially when you had the likes of Adams, Sol Campbell, those kinds of players in front of him. It was just kind of a complete defensive set, and he must have instilled so much confidence into that back line. Just, solid as a rock, really, David Seaman. I can only really remember Seaman ever making one mistake, and that came at the World Cup quarter-final against Brazil with Ronaldinho's weird free kick. I remember watching that as a kid.
Seaman seemed to only have one weakness, and it was getting chipped from a long way out. So I remember there's a famous other example where he got chipped. I think it's by Taim. I can't remember if that's exactly his name, because he was an ex-Spurs player, and it was in the Cup Winners' Cup, and he got chipped from 40 yards in that game as well and made a mistake. And then all the Spurs fans started singing 9 from the halfway line. I think it's that. Because I remember when I was a kid, I had this video. It was like David Seaman's goalkeeping blunders or something. And it was like him talking through like goalkeeping, and like he showed his like 2 famous mistakes, which is the 02 World Cup. He sat in this other one where he got lobbed from halfway, which for a career as long as he had, to only have kind of 2 glaring mistakes, not bad going, is it, to be honest with you?
No, it's not, to be fair. And even then, that Ronaldinho one was a bit of a weird one, because it kind of, at first it kind of looked like a cross, and then but it wasn't, and then obviously it dipped in time and he just couldn't it was that Ronaldinho one was quite freaky, I kind of think, though he still should have saved it.
The other clip of Seaman, this is to put some positivity back into this, was that save he made against Sheffield United in the FA Cup. That like double save. And for all the world, I've seen that clip hundreds of times, and every time I think it's going in, and then the big right paw seems to come out of nowhere and palm it over the bar. I mean, it's great athleticism, great wrist.
I actually find the man is also very memorable, because in '96 for England at the Euros, he wore that god-awful jersey. Like, that goalkeeping kit was horrendous, but I kind of love it, because when I picture it, I can't not picture it with Seaman celebrating after saving that penalty against Scotland.
With his great porn star moustache as well.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
I mean, he had some strong looks as well, did he? I'm thinking of the ponytail towards the end of his career.
The ponytail.
Yeah,
but you know
strong
as well.
Look.
He was also on the first ever series of Dancing on Ice, and he fell over. I remember that as well. He hadn't retired that long before.
Why are you watching Dancing on Ice?
But he also married his partner in that show. That's his wife.
Oh, did he? I didn't know that. I just remember him falling on his ass. But no, to be fair, my mum and dad probably put it on while I was downstairs.
And you're like, it's David Seaman now.
I'd rather bang my head against the wall than watch something like that. Or
watch Seaman slide across ice.
I don't know. If it was David Seaman, I might make an exception, to be honest.
We needed to put a Seaman joke in there. Come on.
And of course, it was going to be you lowering the tone of the show.
Get fucked.
Well, personally, I think he's came too quickly. Let's move on.
Just one final point on David Seaman is Arsenal, I remember, tried to replace him like 2 or 3 times in his career because they signed Ipswich's goalkeeper Richard Wright for quite a lot of money, and they thought Seaman was on his way out. Seaman ended up playing for another 4 years, and Wright never got a kick for Arsenal. Like they spent like 5 million on him, so it was like at that time it was quite big money.
Yeah, it was huge.
And it was the long-term investment of we're going to replace David Seaman, and you couldn't get rid of him. He was that good. Just couldn't oust him from the team. Like that's how impressive he was.
Some players are interesting like that. They just elevate their game when challenged.
Yeah.
Seaman, great legacy, great goalkeeper for Arsenal. Really, as I said, holds a little bit of a nostalgic spot for me because it's the first England #1 that I can remember. And just consistent, great goalkeeper, legend at Arsenal. So great number 5. Matt, my number 5 as well. So we won't bother doing mine. Matt, your number 4.
My number 4 is a Danish player.
I think I know where this is going.
I think I kind of let.
He's my number 2. I'm just going to say.
He's your number 2.
Oh, is it? It might not be. Is it his son?
It's not his son now.
Oh, it's him.
I mean, you could talk about putting it.
Anyway, say who it is.
Oh, it's Peter Schmeichel.
There we go. He's my number 2.
Where do I start with Peter Schmeichel? He had his most successful years at Manchester United. A fantastic goalkeeper for the time. He was instrumental in some of the Champions League's wins, and he's represented Denmark fantastically.
And he's part of that Denmark side that won the Euros in 92 for a tournament they didn't even qualify for, which is still the best.
That is bananas when you think about it, isn't it? That's absolutely crazy.
He is huge. He was commanding in the area.
I think describing him as bear-like wouldn't be too far shy of the mark.
No.
No.
He's not actually as tall as you think.
I think his presence probably added a couple of inches.
Yeah, exactly. He's only 6'3".
It's not bad,
which for our continental listeners is 1.91 metres. That's tall.
Yeah.
But at 100 kilograms, he wore extra large shirts. Fun fact for you, which is obviously back in the day when they used to wear kind of bigger shirts than they were supposed to. But overall, I think a fantastic player. I think he probably does deserve to be a bit higher on this list, but I've got 3 players I think are a little bit better. So.
Yeah, it's a little bit interesting you say that because I also have Schmeichel on my list. He is my number 1.
Really?
I went with Schmeichel.
So maybe we'll do a bit of that more when we get to your number 1.
Yeah.
So Schmeichel for me, it's just an unbelievable goalkeeper. Obviously, you talk about goalkeepers scoring goals. I mean, I saw he had 12 goals in his career, which. For goalkeepers,
that's mental for a goalkeeper.
Not bad going. Only one of them in England, but he got 9, I think, when he was out in Denmark. So bad.
He scored the first ever Premier League goal. Funnily enough,
for Villa, wasn't it? I think that wasn't even for United.
Yeah, it was for Villa.
It
was for
Villa.
Villa.
He scored the first ever Premier
as a goalkeeper.
For a goalkeeper.
Yeah. And he was signed for £500,000, and Ferguson said it was the bargain of the century. And you'd have to argue it's probably about right, isn't it? I mean. Won the most Premier League titles of anybody. Just a phenomenal organiser of the defence. So you talk about leaders again. He had that ability to organise his teams, organise his defence. Yes, he played behind very good defences. But you think of some people in there. You had Steve Bruce. You had players that Phil Neville's and people like this. Maybe not the most gifted, but you could tell that he was a goalkeeper that just gave them the confidence. To be I mean, we can make a mistake because he'll probably bail us out. His best attribute, I think, was his one-on-one saving. I mean, I've seen so many clips of strikers clean through against Schmeichel, and you again talk of him maybe not being that tall. He seems to feel the goal. He looks enormous, and I can understand why, as a centre forward, you one-on-one VP to Schmeichel, thinking, shit, I'm not going to score here. He's bloody massive. Where am I supposed to put this? So Great goalkeeper. Anyway, George, you go.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. He almost scared even the best strikers going through on goal, because as you say, he just took up so much of it, was so big, would make the chance, even if it looked like a relatively simple one, because it is the personality, the monster that was Peter Schmeichel, bearing down on you. It would make people panic. And yeah, he was just a fantastic goalkeeper for that. I think for me, one of the things that really shows just how good a goalkeeper he was, not only just at Man United, but also when he was at Villa and City before he retired in 2003, was that when City played United that year in 2002/3, he was captain for City and Gary Neville was captain in Manchester United that game. Neville refused to shake his hand and acknowledge him. And when he's been asked about that since, Neville has said, well, I've just felt pissed off with him because I felt that we could have had another 4, 2-3 years out of him than what we did. And I think that kind of says a lot when you've left the club and yet still the players are thinking, well, actually, no, you'd still be doing a good job for us. You left too soon. So, yeah, I do think that's a testament to how good Schmeichel was, just how much of a monster he was.
I think the other testament to Peter Schmeichel was how difficult he was to replace. I mean, you think kind of a litany, like 3 or 4 goalkeepers United went through between the period of like 97, 98. Sorry, no, like later, like that early 2000s period. The likes of Tim Howard, the likes of Roy Carroll, Taibbi. Who was that goalkeeper? That shit goalkeeper who let that shot from Letizia in? Oh, Bosnich, I think, wasn't it?
Oh,
Mark
Bosnich.
Yeah. And you just think it just shows how once you've got a good goalkeeper, you need to hold on to them as tight as you can and never let them go. Because once they're gone, it's so hard to find a new one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Completely agree. As I think for me, it speaks volumes. And I know you had the Arsenal Invincibles and then Mourinho turning up at Chelsea, but I do think it speaks volumes that for 3 years, Man United didn't win a league title, which by Man United standards at that point, and that was a drought. That was a drought that they probably weren't used to. And after that, never really went that length of time again without winning a title, and that was just because they didn't have a dependable goalkeeper in those 3 years. So yeah, no, as I said, my number 1, your automatic Champions League spot. That's great stuff. So moving into your number 4, did you have David Seaman,
for me, yeah.
Right, so yeah, my number 4 was De Gea. So moving into number 3, who's your automatic Champions League spot then, Matt?
My automatic Champions League spot is David James.
Ooh, controversial.
Really, David James?
Yeah. So he's the simple reason I put him in there was just because I think he was a fantastic. When I was watching the Premier League growing up...
Hang on, you've really put David James ahead of Schmeichel?
Yeah, I have.
Oh, nah, man.
Yeah.
No, man, I'm getting flashbacks to Greenwood over Lewandowski all over again.
Yeah. At least it was closer. At least he didn't have Schmeichel at number 8.
Oh, my God.
It was a lot closer. He had a fantastic Premier League record for the most clean sheets. At one point, he still sits 4th on the all-time Premier League appearances. He doesn't have the most amazing, trophy cabinet at all. But overall, I think he had a really good career. Reason he beats out Schmeichel. He's a level above him on my list. It's about as far as I've got.
Mate, I'm sure you just pick certain players from a hat and just go with it. How can you have David James ahead of Schmeichel? I mean, even some of the other goalkeepers, Lloris, De Gea, Seaman, David James, man. Don't get me wrong, he had a long career, he had a decent career, but on goalkeeping ability, I would say that other than him and Pickford, I would say he's probably the weakest that we've had so far. I would even probably say that Pickford is, at least in terms of goalkeeping ability, I know he's still got a while to go in his career, I would even say that Pickford is probably more deserving of having a spot anywhere in this top 10 than David James. If you look at going on ability, not so much length of career, but...
Pickford? You would put Pickford second?
No, not second. But I said anywhere on this list ahead of David James. If you said, right, you can have 9 players that you want, but for your 10th player, you've got to either pick Pickford or David James. He's had a longer, career, and had a good career, David James. But if you're going on goalkeeping ability, I'd probably go for Pickford if, again, someone's pointed a gun to me head and said, you've got to put one of these at number 10 or anywhere on your list. But David James, man, I can't get over that. Fucking hell.
Okay, I'm going to weigh in now.
Again, sorry if I sounded rude, but that's like blown my mind.
I agree. Number 3 is way too high. I completely agree with that. He's actually on a lot. I mean, when looking at like best Premier League goalkeepers, he's on a lot of people's lists in their top 15, 20.
But is he ahead of Schmeichel though?
No, and I'm saying he's not. But you're saying the way you're talking, like you're saying, he should be nowhere near like top Premier League goalkeeper.
To be honest with you, I probably, if we were gonna double up and go top 20. Don't think he'd make mine either.
I wouldn't pick him, but my point is a lot of people would. So it's not a surprise that he's on a list, but the surprise is he is too high.
Yeah.
There's no way he should be number 3.
I feel like maybe 10th. I could have swallowed.
Midtable, I think would have been where I'd put him. I wouldn't put him much higher than say 8th at the very most. The one story I'll tell about David James is I remember Ipswich played Portsmouth in the FA Cup. And the fans behind the goal giving him loads of abuse, like England's number 5, and he pulls off this absolutely world-class save, and he turns around and like puts up like number 4 to the indicating he'd gone up a place because he made like a really good save. I thought that was pretty good banter. I have a lot of respect for him for that day. People remember the mistakes, and this is what I was talking about with goalkeeping being a very odd position.
Well, he was known as a calamity keeper, wasn't he, really?
He got that nickname Calamity Jones. But he pulled off some ridiculously good saves as well. But people as a goalkeeper remember mistakes more than they remember good saves.
Yeah.
That's the part of the job.
I don't disagree with you, but the thing is, it kind of, when you're pulling off ridiculous saves, if you're then susceptible to making as many silly mistakes, the good saves are almost useless.
He's not making as many mistakes as he was errors. Like as many.
But I feel like you'd rather swap it so that he isn't making amazing saves, but is stopping what should be routine saves.
Well, I mean that could be debated, but there's a reason he notched like nearly 600 Premier League appearances.
Yeah.
Like, this is not a guy who was making so many errors that he was dropped all over the place. Like, manager after manager stuck behind him.
But at the same time, you don't get the nickname Calamity without... There's no smoke without fire in that sense. In that sense. I've just... my brain is all over the place with this. I can't...
I agree. 3 is too high. I don't disagree with the fact that he was a good goalkeeper. That's my response.
Okay, so, serious question... Matt, why 3? Why number 3? Why ahead of, again, De Gea, Schmeichel, Lloris, Alisson? Why that high up? Why better than those guys? What was the thinking behind? Because all right, him on the list, even though as I said he wouldn't come anywhere near mine, I can kind of accept the list, him being on that. But why that high? Why above those players? What was the thought process behind that? I am somewhat curious to know.
In all honesty, I kind of just whacked him in there and then forgot to move him down.
You know what? That for me is that's the most valid way I could. You know what? I'll give you that.
That's literally it, because he's third. And the way I did it, I think Pepe Reina was supposed to be there, but when I dragged him into my document, he got moved over. So yeah, and then I didn't pick it up. But I think overall, I do think saying he doesn't deserve a place on this list is really harsh.
I don't think it is. I think if we were going to do 20,
if you're having Spurs' third choice keeper on here, I think.
But look at what Spurs' current third choice goalkeeper has done earlier in his career.
10 years ago.
No. Like, he was still, like, he won a title 6 years ago.
12.
They won the title in 2014.
Yeah. Oh, is it 2014? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and he was still playing with City up until 2016.
Yeah. Did he start so much in 2016? I can't remember.
Yeah, he was still their main keeper in 2016.
When did they starting to make errors?
He was. Yeah, that was when the errors started.
Because that was before he went on loan.
No, come on, you can't compare David
No,
James
I'm not
at
all. But yeah, no. All I'm saying is, I think if you're putting him in there, but yeah, I agree. Third doesn't really deserve to be there.
And there we know how Matt's process works for this show and the amount of prep that he puts in.
To be honest with you, I honestly think that at the start of this, I'd have just said, "Oh, number 10, David James."
Yeah, no, I didn't.
Even I wouldn't have. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
anyway,
I probably should have just made it up halfway through.
Right. So, automatic Champions League spot. Simon, who's your number 3?
Mine's hopefully less controversial than that one. I think it will be Edwin van der Sar.
My number 2, Van der Sar.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
He was, I think, the goalkeeper that I remember most watching during that era, and just going, he was a wall. I mean, just
he was.
You didn't put anything past Van der Sar, and bear in mind he was not a young goalkeeper by any stretch at that point either. He'd already played most of his career at Ajax. Then I think he was in Italy and had moved to Fulham and was part. I don't know. Was he part of that UEFA Cup run that Fulham had? I can't remember if he'd gone by that. I think that was Schwarzer in goal for them.
Yeah, Schwarzer was. I think that UEFA Cup run that Fulham had came quite a bit later. I think that was around 2010. Yeah. So by that point, Van der Sar had already gone to United. But no, so yeah, he spent 1990 to 1999. He was at Ajax, won the Champions League with Ajax. Then had 2 years at Juventus.
I thought it was.
Then he went to Fulham in 2001, which for big money at the time for a goalkeeper, I think it was something like £7 million for then newly promoted Fulham.
Yeah.
It's such a weird move that he would go there when, he's a Champions League winning goalkeeper at that point.
But what a signing for Fulham, to be honest. I mean,
brilliant signing for them. But Man United, Sir Alex Ferguson came out, a few years after they signed him and said, we should have signed this guy years ago.
Because I think they said they tried to sign him when they got rid of Peter Schmeichel in that kind of era, and they didn't get him for whatever reason. Then obviously he goes to Fulham, has 4 excellent years at Fulham. Then at United, he breaks the record for consecutive clean sheets.
He does.
14.
11.
I thought it was 14. I got 14 there.
Was it 14? Oh, okay. You got 14. I had 11. Maybe my Wikipedia is wrong because that's where I got mine from.
Mine, maybe I wrote it down wrong. Anyway, it's a lot of games anyway. Either way, if it's 11 or 14, that is insane.
That's still outrageous, really, when you think about it, isn't it? To get double figures, really. And even then, he narrowly beat Petr Cech to that as well. Petr Cech, rather. He narrowly beat him in terms of consecutive clean sheets. Yeah. But, Van der Sar was incredible. And as I said, Man United went 3 years without winning a title. Between 2004 to 6, Arsenal Invincibles, then Mourinho's back-to-back. And then from 7, 8, 9, when they had Van der Sar, they won 3 on the bounce. And
he was a fantastic guy. But to go 11 games without conceding, that means that you haven't had any lucky deflections, and you can't go that long without having a top class keeper. And let's not forget a top class defence. You think that United defence, Neville, Vidic, Ferdinand, Evra, that's as good a defence as you'll find in a Premier League side. But he was, and you talk about goalkeepers being so integral as part of that defensive unit. We've spoken about that before. He was the glue that held that whole thing together. He commanded his box well. He made great saves. Again, another goalkeeper just got on with the job. Such minimal fuss, and it seemed like, I just make saves. It's just what I do. And I love that. There's no need for theatrics. If it's an easy save, you don't need to make a pretty save for the cameras like you see some keepers doing. Just save it properly and make sure you don't make any errors. And he was just the epitome of that.
Again, super reliable, in goal for the penalty shootout when they won the Champions League, and was the goalkeeper in the Champions League final of 2011, his final ever game.
How old was it? How old was he at that point?
I think he was 40.
I was going to say he must have been nearly, or if not already there.
I think he was. I think he just hit 40 at that point. So you look at the level that he was at for his entire career.
Well, because he was 21-ish, I think, when they won the Champions League with Ajax. He was very young as a goalkeeper then. So as you say, to like bookend his career almost with Champions League finals and stay consistently at that level, it is fantastic. And again, makes that move to Fulham all the more strange. But I'm sure Fulham were delighted that he went there.
No, they got a good 4 years out of him, didn't they? Something like that.
And they probably don't stay up without him in goal. So
no, completely agree. So yeah, no, valid shout for Van der Sar at number 3 there, Simon. As I said, my number 2. So moving into my automatic Champions League spot, I imagine he's probably your number 1, Simon. I've gone with Petr Cech at number 3.
You assume correctly, yeah, he's my number 1.
He's my number 1.
Yeah, your number 1 as well. Oh, okay, great. Again, I could understand. I could understand that number 1. It was kind of for me because I had Petr Cech at number 3, Van der Sar number 2, number 1 Peter Schmeichel. But to be honest with you, on any given day, it could have been any one of those 3. So yeah, just what can you say about Petr Cech? He's got the record number of clean sheets in a season, which is 24, which is what he got in his in Mourinho's first year at Chelsea, 04-05. 24 clean sheets. That's outrageous.
Well, they only
really
conceded 15 goals that whole season. That is just insane. Like a 38 game season, you concede 15 times.
As far as I'm aware, he's also the only goalkeeper to have premiered for Guildford Phoenix. So, that's the thing. That's a nice hockey team.
Yeah. That's a lovely little insight there. And to be honest with you as well, Petr Cech, he won 4 Golden Gloves over the course of his career, actually. He even managed to win 1 at Arsenal as well.
That is impressive at Arsenal. They should be relatively.
Late Arsenal as well.
When you think of the defence that he had in front of him and that he conceded about 10% of his total Premier League career goals in just 2-3 years at Arsenal when he'd spent nearly a decade at Chelsea. If not, he spent over a decade at Chelsea. I think that kind of says about the levels of defences in front of him. But yeah, he managed to win a Golden Glove at Arsenal as well. 4 in his career as a total. Only Joe Hart matches him in that sense. And yeah, just so solid. And one thing that I do think is kind of impressive, and I know it's probably a little bit easier for goalkeeper than it is for an outfield player, but obviously he had that horrific head injury, and for a lot of players that maybe could have been their career again. If he was maybe an outfield player, maybe a centre-back that relied on heading the ball, it might have been good night on his career. But, to come back from that, to still play with confidence and to still be one of, if not the best goalkeeper in the world at that point after such a bad injury, it's a credit to the man, I think.
Yeah, no,
I agree. Do you think he would have been this? I'm arguing against myself here, but in the modern era of goalkeeping, do you think he would rank as highly as he did? Because we talk about goalkeepers evolving into needing this whole game of range of passing. I'm not sure whether Petr Cech had that, and that.
Maybe not.
And that, again, I'm arguing against myself because he's my number 1, but
maybe not if you took, say, a peak Petr Cech from 04-05 and just dropped him into a Man City or Liverpool team of today. But if he'd come through the ranks around about now, you'd feel that he'd maybe, because they do teach goalkeepers that now at football, whereas obviously 20 years or so ago, even 10 years ago, let's be honest, it was all about how good you were at shot stopping, how good you were at being able to read the play and take the cross. And something that I really do like, not just in Petr Cech, but in a lot of the goalkeepers that I've listed here, is that reliability of catching the ball instead of punching it. Massive pet peeve of mine. I feel like goalkeepers should only punch it if they've got no chance of catching it. But you see so many goalkeepers just punch it when they could easily catch it. And I'm like, well, why are you doing that? Because the ball could just bounce back to the opponents and then they could potentially have a shot or whatever. It just daft. But no, reliable. You talked about Van der Sar not making, these highlight saves. I think Petr Cech was the same. Dependable, reliable, and an excellent shot stopper. And consistent for so long, over 10 years in the Premier League.
The other thing I'd say on Petr Cech is when he first joined Chelsea, Carlo Cudicini is a superb goalkeeper. Be under no illusion. To keep Carlo Cudicini on the bench, that is some achievement because he's a fantastic goalkeeper by his own right. I mean, he's not made any of our lists, but he's a very, very good goalkeeper. But Petr Cech was just that level above, and you could tell that as soon as he walked through the door. He gave that defence the last piece. Again, goalkeepers, and when we've done our list of greatest players and things like this, we've neglected goalkeepers, but they are so important. You cannot get by without a top goalkeeper.
Yeah.
You just cannot win things without a top goalkeeper.
It's almost interesting because I think you're right, because I think there's an element of if a goalkeeper comes into a squad that's a already okay defence, I feel like it's good to keep that mental attitude high. I think where a lot of goalkeepers struggle is when they go to a team that potentially are shipping more goals, and then I think they start to lose confidence and their head kind of gets down, and I think that's where the issues really start to come, because I think it's such a confidence-driven.
I think the thing with goalkeepers, though, is they're a little bit like referees in the sense that if they have a good game, you almost don't really notice.
Yeah, that's very
But when they have a bad game...
I don't know, mate. I'd kind of disagree there, because especially if the goalkeeper is... Like, don't get me wrong, if the rest of the team has played well, like very well, then... Yeah, but so often you might see a team win 1-0 or even nick a draw, and the goalkeeper is putting out shots, stops left, right, centre.
I suppose I'm talking maybe more for bigger sides, but yeah, you're right. I mean, there are games where, like, I can think of Pope away at Anfield last season was ridiculous.
But Simon is right in that it's one of those positions where you're kind of doing your job even if you're not scoring 30 goals.
I'm going to say, because I think it's interesting that
it's less obvious.
We all did our top 10 Premier League players in the first episode of this, and not one of us even really considered goalkeepers. We didn't really even... No,
I do think that
so that's
to
not
a
my
certain
point.
degree...
They're so unflashed, they don't really... You don't really notice them. If they're doing their job well, you kind of go, good job, well done. We expect you to save the shots, and you've done it. So good on you.
Yeah. I would say maybe unnoticed is possibly a little bit...
Maybe that's too strong.
But they don't get the credit that they would necessarily deserve.
I'd say they're certainly underappreciated. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Because, I mean, the one for me that really sticks in my mind is, I think it was 2014, I think it was the year Germany won the World Cup. Didn't Neuer come third in the Ballon d'Or that year?
He did, yeah.
Yeah, and only Messi and Ronaldo beat him.
And I remember you being very cross and saying he shouldn't win it when we were at school.
No, and I still stick by that to this day, and that's not a slight on Manuel Neuer. I think he was a fantastic goalkeeper, but I don't think at that point, especially when you looked at, Real Madrid won the Champions League that year, and I know Germany obviously won the World Cup, but even looking at that Germany team, I thought Thomas Müller, excellent, Toni Kroos, I thought all these other players, and as I said, I know it's a little bit harsh because Neuer was, again, arguably the greatest goalkeeper of this generation.
He's certainly up there, isn't he?
Yeah, he's certainly up there, but I did kind of think, no, come on, like you've got all these other players that have stepped up. Is he better than David James? I don't know, man. I think Bayern are missing a trick by not having David James in their starting lineup. But yeah, you are right. I was, again, maybe I shouldn't have been cross because, as I said, Neuer was an incredible goalkeeper, but I just couldn't go along with the idea that he was the third. If you remove Messi and Ronaldo from the equation, I couldn't go along with the narrative that he was he was good enough to win the Ballon d'Or over the likes of Müller, Kroos, etc. Lahm.
George, quick question: do you think a goalkeeper should ever win a Ballon d'Or, and under what circumstance would you allow that?
Oh man, that is a question. When they score 5 goals I would say probably 99 times out of 100, they probably shouldn't win it. But
what's the 100?
If they have won the league title in their country and been say they kind of played the role that Iker Casillas did for Spain, that Hugo Lloris does for Spurs. So if they played in goal for the team that's won the league, won the Champions League, and then if there's an international tournament that year, also won that, which I know that's...
Fucking
so
hell,
they get to win a Champions League and the World Cup.
Yeah.
Jesus.
I know. But for me, I just think that as instrumental as a goalkeeper is, and there is no doubt that they are instrumental, at the end of it's the... And I know you do get game-winning saves to a certain extent, but... you could have the best goalkeeper. I think this is what it boils down to. You could have the best goalkeeper, both in terms of goalkeeping ability and ability to play out from the back. But if the 10 men in front of him can't put the ball in the back of the net, you'll never win anything. I think that's probably why goalkeepers don't get the credit they necessarily deserve, because as important and needed to the team as they are, you could have the best goalkeeper ever, but if the players in front of him can't produce what they're supposed to produce, you can't win something.
What I'll ask you, George, is that the thing with goalkeepers, and by the way, I'm totally angry. I think they should win, individual, competitions more.
I mean, should goalkeepers have their own Ballon d'Or?
I think that's a better question, and I would say yes to that, because it is a little bit unfair to compare one person who can only play in one position that's completely different. As you said, it is the most specialist role on there, because if your striker's not performing, you can still hope that the midfielder will step up and take that mantle. And again, it works vice versa all over the rest of the pitch. But with a goalkeeper, if the goalkeeper's not performing, you can't just say to the centre-back, oh, you go and goal now. No.
Do you also think it's a lack of emotional investment? Because when Kevin De Bruyne put through a beautiful, ball or scores a worldie, we all celebrate and, our brains let off endorphins, even if it's not for our team, right? But that doesn't happen so much when Alisson puts up a massive save. We go, oh, that was a great save. We recognise it. But emotionally, it's not entertaining. You could watch goalkeepers save for 30 minutes.
To a certain extent, as a neutral, even if you see a goalkeeper pull off a worldie save, as a neutral, you'd rather see it hit the back of the net, because it would make the game more exciting.
So I think the game's always stacked against you in a little way, in that you're never emotionally going to actually want a goalkeeper to do their job
unless
as
it's
a
your
neutral.
team.
Unless it's your team.
Yeah.
Which for 9 times out of 10, it's not.
That to be fair, that is a very valid point you raise, and a very good one. I really like where you're going with that. To go back to Simon's question, I would say that you would probably need, in order for a goalkeeper to win the Ballon d'Or as it is right now, again, I'm going to distract what I said about the Premier League and Champions League, because
they just need to win everything.
Yeah, because
if you win
and score 35 goals a season and assist 20.
Okay, no, I'm going to admit that.
And win Wimbledon and the Masters. If you do all of that, then you can Ballon d'Or.
No, I'm going to admit, yes, they also have to win F1 as well. Don't forget F1. But no. But no, I'm gonna retract that statement, and I'm gonna say, in order for me, I think that they're gonna, in order for, I would say, for a goalkeeper to win the Ballon d'Or, I think that they would have to really play the kind of role that, again, Iker Casillas played for Spain in the World Cup, and that Hugo Lloris kind of does for Spurs and does for France, and be a big leader in that dressing room. But then they would also have to win
everything.
If not, not everything, but I think they would have to win something, because.
Yeah, but that's just true of the Ballon d'Or in general. Like, you tend to have to win something.
Yeah, exactly. More often than not, the Ballon d'Or winner has won something that year. But I would say that the outfield players would have to be pretty, not mediocre, but I feel like the goalkeeper would have to be almost more of a driving force than them, because if the attacking players are more of a driving force than the goalkeeper, then I would think that they would deserve to win the Ballon d'Or over the goalkeeper. But if they were winning, say, every game 1-0, or were shutting out really close games, and yes, you'd still have the midfielders and the strikers and even the defence doing a very good job. And then you could maybe argue that does the main centre-back deserve to win the Ballon d'Or if they've ground out a title through defensive shifts, or a Champions League through defensive shifts.
A goalkeeper can't win a Ballon d'Or because you're expecting him to win something and be instrumental in it, and he can't win something.
Fabio Cannavaro did for Italy in 2006. He wasn't a goalkeeper; he was a centre-back, but.
He was a great player.
I would, in order for a goalkeeper to do it, I would want them to have that kind of impact that he did.
I think in terms of when you look at goalkeepers, it's very hard, as you say. Like, you're so reliant on having teammates that are good in front of you. But you said that they rely on the 10 players in front of them. The 10 players in front of them are so reliant on a goalkeeper. Liverpool's 10 in front of the goalkeeper were a machine
I
for
do
like
agree.
2 or 3 years before they won anything. But they needed the keeper. The keeper was the integral piece of the puzzle.
I do agree that they do need the goalkeeper. It's just, as I said, you can maybe get away with having...
That is true, because Victor Valdez was not a great goalkeeper.
Can't get away without the outfield players to do their bit.
Yeah, and do you think it will be less likely for a goalkeeper to win the Ballon d'Or in modern football because squads are now so good at attacking that there aren't teams now that shut games out 1-0, really?
No, there aren't. But to a certain degree, though, I would also say that the goalkeeper's role has changed with football in terms of passing it out from the back. So, if you look at Ederson, maybe not from a defensive point of view, I'm thinking maybe now, if you look at Ederson's range of passing, if he or Alisson really kind of dictates... I know it's difficult talking about dictating a game from goalkeeper, but the way that goalkeeping is going, I think that it could be a very real possibility in the future because they're becoming more and more reliant with their feet. And you said it yourself, Ederson could play in midfield, and if he could maybe just, he's not going to have the same overall impact from goal that he would on the midfield. But if he could dictate it somewhat from a goalkeeper, even though, as I said, it would certainly be in a limited fashion, you would still need your midfield.
Would you not argue in some ways that he does already do that? Because I would.
Yeah, I think in that kind of sense, depending on where the game goes, it could be easier for them to win it. But
anyway, we've gone a little off topic there. It was an interesting discussion.
Yeah, no, definitely. But to be honest with you, you say, like, my list is pretty much... we've got all the players on my list. My number 3 was Petr Cech. Yeah. Going into number 2, who was your runner-up, Matt?
We've already done number 2.
No, you said Alisson, didn't you, for your number 2?
Oh, yeah. My number 2 was Alisson.
Yeah, so we've discussed Alisson, and your runner-up, Simon, was...
Peter Schmeichel.
Yeah, we've discussed Schmeichel, and your number 1, Matt, was...
Petr Cech.
Same
here. And my number 1 was Peter Schmeichel. So we've basically covered. We've basically covered all of those lists, all our lists basically.
Yeah, just thought we should tidy it up. To do the housekeeping, make sure we've just gone through it properly.
Yeah, definitely. So, Matt, would you like to give us a full rendition of your list, but hopefully don't include David James this time? I'm joking,
just move him downwards, at least.
I'll move him downwards, and then we'll do some clever editing.
No, mate. This is going out as is.
Are you sure you don't want to edit this one further?
No, mate. At the end of the day, mate, I know. I've kind of hammered you for it, but no, man. Like, it's your opinion. You got to stick by it, even if I do think it's crap.
What you do?
It's your list at the end of the day.
Amen.
And yeah, like I'm not being funny. You could have put Lucas Fabianski at number 1, and I'd have still been like, "What the fuck are you doing?" But it's your list, man. As much as I disagree with you. As much as I disagree with you, and as much as I joked just a second ago, it's your list, mate. I'm not going to dictate to you. What you put on it.
David James was too high. He does deserve to be number 9. But anyway, so at number 10, Jordan Pickford. 9, Pepe Reina. 8, Ederson. 7, Hugo Lloris. 6, David De Gea. 5, David Seaman. 4, Peter Schmeichel. Number 3, David James. Number 2, Alisson. And number 1, Petr Cech.
Lovely stuff. And your top 10, Simon?
My top 10. Number 10, Jussi Jaskalainen. Number 9, Alisson. Number 8, Jens Lehmann. Number 7, Brad Friedel. Number 6, David De Gea. In Europa League, number 5, Pepe Reina. In the Champions League, we've got David Seaman at number 4, Edwin van der Sar at number 3, Peter Schmeichel at number 2, and Petr Cech as the winner.
Lovely stuff. And my top 10, I've got... At bang on mid-table, Jens Lehmann. Number 9, Joe Hart. Number 8, Pepe Reina. Number 7, Alisson. Number 6, in that first Europa League spot, Hugo Lloris. Number 5, David Seaman. Moving into the Champions League spots, I've got David De Gea at number 4, Petr Cech at number 3, my runner-up, Edwin van der Sar, and my number 1, Peter Schmeichel. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode. That's the final whistle. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Midtable and Up podcast. If you enjoy our top 10 lists, please make sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. Let us know what you would have done differently. If you watch this episode on YouTube, make sure to put your foot through that subscribe button and leave a like on the video, as well as follow us on Spotify, the podcast app, to keep up to date with the series. Thank you very much. See you next time.